The smell of fresh coffee filled the kitchen of the Oak Creek estate, but Maggie Abbott didn't have time to appreciate the aroma. Her hands were already deep in soapy water, washing the breakfast dishes she had just served her family. It was 6 in the morning, and she had been up for 2 hours preparing everything according to her father's exacting demands. From the other side of the house came the shrill voice of Felicity, her older sister, complaining about the shade of nail polish her manicurist had brought from Atlanta. Maggie sighed. Just another ordinary day on the estate that had once been prosperous, but now survived more on appearances than reality. Her father, Robert Abbott, was a man obsessed with status. A former real estate mogul, he had lost a good part of the family fortune in bad investments, but refused to admit it. The family still lived in the imposing century-old plantation house in Georgia, surrounded by land that used to produce peaches and cotton, but now barely supported a few heads of cattle. Yet, to the high society of Savannah and the surrounding region, the Abbotts remained a traditional, wealthy, and respectable family. Maggie dried, her hands on her worn apron, and looked out the window. At 24, she was practically invisible inside her own home. While Felicity, at 28, was treated like a princess, Maggie was seen as the problem child, the disappointment. She wasn't beautiful like her sister, they said. She didn't have the elegant bearing, the perfect skin, or Felicity's natural blonde hair. Maggie was brunette, had freckles, and a shy demeanor that her father interpreted as a lack of personality. What no one knew was that in the silent hours of the night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Maggie transformed. Locked in her small room at the back of the house, she opened her old laptop and dove into another universe. There she wasn't the family maid. There she was Mary Sanders, a pseudonym under which she published academic papers on sustainable social development and solidarity economics in international journals. For years, Maggie had used every free minute to study. When everyone thought she was resting, she was devouring books on economics, sociology, and regional development. When the family went to social events from which she was deliberately excluded, Maggie watched online lectures from foreign universities. Her latest paper on microfinance in rural communities had been cited by 3 professors from Yale University, and she didn't even have a formal degree. Her father's deep voice boomed through the house like thunder. "Robert, bring coffee to the library and tell Maggie to come too." Maggie felt her stomach tighten. Being summoned to the library rarely meant anything good. She prepared the coffee tray, smoothed her hair back into a simple bun, and headed to the other side of the house. The library was Robert's sanctuary. Walls lined with books he never read, an imposing mahogany desk, leather armchairs. There, he conducted what business remained and plotted his schemes to regain lost prestige. "Come in, don't just stand there like a statue," he growled when Maggie appeared at the door. Felicity was already seated in one of the armchairs, examining her freshly done nails. She wore a designer outfit that certainly cost more than Maggie would earn in a year, if she were paid a salary for the work she did. Her mother, Lucille, was on the sofa in the corner, pale and quiet as always. The chronic illness that had afflicted her for years had left her fragile, but Maggie knew it. It wasn't just the disease that had broken her mother. It was the marriage to Robert, the toxic dynamic of that house, the forced silence in the face of injustice. Robert waited for Maggie to pour the coffee before speaking. He had that glint in his eyes, the look of someone who had just had an idea they considered genius. "You're going to want to hear this," he began, savoring the moment. "Yesterday, at the club, I heard some valuable information. Valentine Sterling is looking for a wife." Felicity's eyes went wide, and even Lucille seemed to rouse from her lethargic state. Maggie, still standing near the door, didn't need to ask who Valentine Sterling was. Everyone in America knew the name. Valentine Sterling was the country's most discreet and powerful billionaire. At 38, he had built an empire mixing next-generation agribusiness and sustainable tech. His soy farms in the Midwest used artificial intelligence and drones. His startups in New York developed solutions for family farming. He was a man who appeared little in the media, but when he did, he made headlines. Single, private about his personal life, and according to rumors, looking for a wife who shared his traditional values. Imagine, Robert continued, leaning forward, an alliance with the Sterlings. It would be the salvation of this family. It would be our return to the top. Felicity was already smiling, imagining herself as Mrs. Sterling. Maggie just watched, knowing her father too well to know where this was going. "I've already scheduled a meeting," Robert announced triumphantly. "Tomorrow, Felicity and I travel to New York City. Valentine Sterling will receive us at his office in the financial district." "And me, Daddy?" asked Felicity anxiously. "What should I wear? How should I behave?" "Dress like the lady you are," Robert replied. "Be elegant, polite, but not submissive. Show him you are a woman of society, prepared to stand beside a powerful man." Maggie said nothing. No one expected her to say anything. No one included her in these conversations. She was just the shadow that served coffee and then disappeared. Later, when everyone retired for their afternoon rest, Maggie went up to her mother's room. Lucille was lying down, as always, surrounded by pillows and with that air of permanent exhaustion. "Mom," Maggie whispered, sitting on the edge of the bed, "are you okay?" Lucille opened her eyes and gave a weak smile. "As well as I can be, my daughter. I brought your medicine." Maggie knew the expensive medication her mother needed was controlled by her father. He decided when she would take it, how much she would take, using Lucille's health as an instrument of control. If her mother dared to question him, if anyone in the house disobeyed, Robert threatened to cut off access to the treatment. It was a silent and cruel form of blackmail. "Maggie," said Lucille, holding her daughter's hand, "I know your life here isn't easy. I see everything, even when I pretend not to. Forgive me for never having the strength to defend you." "You don't need to apologize, Mom. It's not your fault." Lucille squeezed her hand tighter than seemed possible in that frail body. "One day you will be free, my daughter. One day you will show everyone who you really are." Maggie swallowed her tears. She wanted to believe it, but in that moment, trapped in that house, in that dynamic, freedom seemed like a distant dream. That night, while the family slept, Maggie opened her notebook. She had received an email from a European academic journal accepting her most recent paper on collaborative economics in rural areas. The editor praised the depth of the research and the originality of the perspective. They asked for a photo and a brief biography for publication. Maggie looked at the screen, torn. That was her secret world, her parallel identity. Mary Sanders wasn't anyone's daughter, wasn't the ugly sister, wasn't the invisible maid. Mary Sanders was a respected thinker, an important voice in discussions on social development. But revealing her identity, that would mean exposing herself, risking that her family would find out. And Maggie knew that if her father knew, he would find a way to use it against her, to turn her only refuge into another tool of control. She closed the laptop without replying to the email. It wasn't time yet. The next day, Maggie woke up earlier than usual to pack Felicity and her father's luggage. She ironed the clothes, polished the shoes, checked every detail. Felicity was nervous and excited at the same time, changing outfits 3 times before deciding which look she would use to meet Valentine Sterling. "Wish me luck," Felicity said to Maggie, in a rare moment of direct communication between the sisters. "I'm going to marry the richest man in America." Maggie just nodded. She didn't envy her sister, she pitied her. Felicity was so molded by their father, so consumed by the quest for status and appearances, that she had lost any chance of discovering who she really was. When the car disappeared down the long driveway that led to the highway, Maggie felt a momentary relief. 2 days without her father in the house were like a vacation. She could help her mother more calmly. She could study without fear of being discovered, but in the back of her mind a question echoed. What would happen when they returned from New York? Maggie didn't know it yet, but that trip would change her life forever, and in a way that not even she, with all her intelligence and analytical ability, could predict. The 2 days of peace ended abruptly when Maggie heard the sound of the car in the driveway. It was noon on a sunny Thursday, and she was in the garden picking herbs for lunch. Upon seeing the vehicle approaching, her chest tightened. Something was wrong. The car stopped abruptly, kicking up dust. Robert got out first, his face red with rage. Felicity stepped out next, And Maggie had never seen her like that. Her perfect sister, always so controlled and vain, had eyes swollen from crying, her makeup smeared, her hair disheveled. She walked past Maggie without even looking, running into the house. "You!" Robert shouted, pointing at Maggie. "Make coffee, now!" Maggie obeyed in silence, but every fiber of her being was on alert. What had happened in New York? Apparently, the meeting with Valentine Sterling hadn't gone according to plan. In the library, Robert paced from one side to the other like a caged animal. Lucille had been called down and was sitting on the sofa, frightened. Felicity was crying in a corner, hiding her face in her hands. Maggie served the coffee with trembling hands. "That man," Robert began, his voice laden with venom. "That Valentine Sterling is arrogant, a pompous man who thinks he's superior to everyone." "What happened, Robert?" Lucille asked, her voice weak. "He humiliated us," Robert exploded. "He humiliated your daughter, humiliated this family." Felicity sobbed louder. Maggie remained near the door, trying to make herself invisible, but unable to contain her curiosity. Robert took a deep breath, trying to regain control. When he started speaking, his voice was more controlled but no less furious. The meeting started well. We were received in a magnificent office on the top floor of a building in the financial district. Valentine Sterling is exactly as they say. Elegant, polite, discreet. He spoke with us for almost an hour, asked about the family, about our traditions, our history. Felicity was perfect, weren't you, daughter? Felicity just nodded, without lifting her head. "Then," continued Robert, "when I thought we were making progress, when I started discussing possibilities of an alliance, he interrupted us, said he appreciated our visit, but that there was no connection." "No connection," he repeated bitterly, "as if my daughter wasn't good enough for him." Maggie watched the scene, processing every word. Part of her felt sorry for Felicity, even though her sister had never shown her kindness. No one deserved to be rejected like that, treated like merchandise in a deal that didn't go through. But then Robert said something that changed everything. However, he made a strange proposal. Very strange. Lucille leaned forward. "What proposal?" He said. Robert paused as if he still didn't believe his own words. "That if I wanted to maintain any possibility of an alliance with the Sterlings, I should send my other daughter for a meeting." The silence that followed was absolute. Maggie felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath her feet. Felicity stopped crying and looked at her father, incredulous. Lucille's eyes went wide. "Maggie?" whispered Lucille. "He wants to meet Maggie?" Robert gave a bitter smile. "Apparently, yes. He was very specific. Said that if I had an interest in any kind of partnership, I should send my youngest daughter to New York next week." "Why?" asked Felicity, her voice coming out in a sharp squeak. "Why does he want to meet her?" "That is the question that won't leave my head," Robert replied, finally looking at Maggie. "What did you do? What did you say to someone? How does Valentine Sterling even know of your existence?" Maggie was paralyzed. "I never spoke to him, Father. I never spoke to anyone about our family. I don't understand." And it was true. Maggie had no idea how Valentine Sterling could know about her. They didn't move in the same circles. She never left the estate except to go to the nearest small town. She had no friends, no social life. How would he know? Unless... A thought crossed her mind like lightning. Her articles, the academic publications. But how? She used a pseudonym. She had never revealed her real identity. Was it possible someone had found out? "This is a test," declared Robert, interrupting Maggie's thoughts. "It has to be. He wants to see you so that, by contrast, he realizes how superior Felicity is. It's a psychological game." Felicity seemed to cheer up with this interpretation. "Of course, he's going to see you and realize he made a mistake rejecting me." Robert nodded, satisfied with his own theory. "Exactly, it's a strategy. He wants me to value more what he initially refused. It's a smart move, I have to admit." Maggie said nothing, but a part of her doubted this explanation. It seemed too elaborate, too specific. Why would a man like Valentine Sterling waste time with games like these? Then it's decided, said Robert. Maggie, you go to New York on Monday. You will meet with Valentine Sterling and you will be exactly what you are. Simple, dull, ordinary. When he realizes the difference, he will apologize and reconsider Felicity. Maggie felt the humiliation burn in her chest, but kept her expression neutral. She was used to it. Years of belittlement had taught her not to react, not to show pain. You may go, said Robert, dismissing her with a wave of his hand. Maggie went up to her room on shaky legs. She closed the door and let herself fall onto the narrow bed. Her heart beat out of rhythm. Was her father right? Was it just a cruel test, or was there something more? She grabbed her old phone and opened her email. There was the message she hadn't replied. Two from the European Journal asking for her photo and bio. There were other messages too. Invitations for online lectures, interview requests, praise for her articles. Could it be a coincidence? Could Valentine Sterling have discovered her secret identity? Maggie spent the weekend in a state of anxiety she had never experienced. Felicity and her father planned every detail of the trip. Curiously, although Robert insisted this was a test, he was investing in Maggie's appearance. You can't go looking like a maid, he said on Saturday. That would be too obvious. You need to look presentable, albeit simple. Seamstress was called. Maggie was measured, analyzed, discussed as if she were a mannequin. Felicity supervised everything, choosing neutral colors, modest cuts, nothing that could make Maggie look pretty. No cleavage, instructed Felicity. Nothing flashy, simple and faded like she is. Maggie endured it all in silence, but inside something was changing. A small flame of hope, or perhaps defiance, was igniting. What if this wasn't a test? What if Valentine Sterling really wanted to meet her, for whatever reason? For the first time in years, Maggie allowed herself to dream of the possibility that her life could be different. On Sunday night, Lucille went to Maggie's room. She was weaker than usual as Robert, irritated with the turn of events, had reduced her medications as punishment for the family failing to conquer Valentine Sterling. "My daughter," said Lucille, sitting with difficulty on the bed. "I don't know what will happen tomorrow in New York, but I want you to know one thing." Maggie held her mother's cold hand. "You have always been special, Maggie. Always different from your father and sister. You have kindness, you have intelligence, you have a pure heart. No matter what happens tomorrow, don't let them convince you that you have no value." Tears ran down Maggie's face. "Thank you, Mom." Lucille squeezed her hand with more strength than seemed possible. "And if, by some miracle, there is a chance for you to leave this house, to have a different life, do not hesitate, don't worry about me, just go." "Mom, I would never abandon you." "It wouldn't be abandonment," whispered Lucille. "It would be salvation. My salvation would be knowing that at least one of my daughters managed to be free." They hugged for a long time, two women imprisoned by the same house, by the same family, but united by a silent love that had survived years of cruelty. On Monday morning, Maggie was in the car again, but this time only with the driver Robert had hired. Her father wouldn't accompany her. Not worth the effort, he had said. It was just a test. As the estate fell behind and the road unrolled toward the airport, Maggie looked out the window and made a silent promise to herself. It didn't matter what Valentine Sterling wanted. It didn't matter if it was a test or something real. She would go with dignity. She wouldn't humiliate herself. She wouldn't accept being treated as a bargaining chip. And if, just if, there really was a chance for change, she would grab it with all her might. New York City appeared on the horizon like a vertical dream of concrete and glass. Maggie had never been to the big city. Her heart raced as the car entered Manhattan. Her life was about to change forever. And this time, she was ready. The building in the financial district was even more imposing than Maggie had imagined. Glass and steel rising toward the sky, reflecting the clouds. Of a New York afternoon. She got out of the car with trembling legs, smoothing the simple dress Felicity had chosen. Navy blue, straight cut, nothing memorable. The receptionist was waiting for her. "Miss Abbott, Mr. Sterling is expecting you. Please follow me." Maggie was led through elegant corridors to a private elevator. The ascent seemed to last an eternity. She tried to control her breathing, repeating her mother's words to herself. You have value. You have value. The elevator doors opened directly into a panoramic office. The view was breathtaking. New York City stretched as far as the eye could see, a sea of buildings under the partly cloudy sky. And then she saw him. Valentine Sterling was standing near the windows, back turned, observing the city. Even from a distance, Maggie noticed the natural elegance, the confident posture. When he turned around, she had to make an effort not to step back. He was different from what she expected. In the few photos that circulated in the press, Valentine always seemed distant, almost cold. In person, there was an intensity in his dark eyes, a presence that filled the room. He wore a suit without a tie, his black hair slightly messy, as if he had run his hand through it recently. "Maggie Abbott," he said, and his voice was softer than she had imagined. "Please sit down." She obeyed, choosing one of the armchairs facing his desk. Valentine didn't sit behind the desk, as would be expected. Instead, he pulled up a chair and sat facing her with no barriers between them. "I imagine you must be confused," he began. "Your father must have created interesting theories about the reason for this meeting." Maggie found her voice, though it came out weaker than she would have liked. "Cy thinks it's a test, that you want to see me to realize that my sister is better." Valentine gave a sad smile. "And you? What do you think?" Maggie hesitated. During the whole trip, she had convinced herself she wouldn't be intimidated, that she would speak with honesty. It was time to honor that promise. "I think a man like you wouldn't waste time with games like these. If you called me here, there is a real reason." Valentine leaned forward, eyes fixed on hers. "You're right. And I'm going to be completely honest with you, Maggie. May I call you Maggie?" She nodded, unable to look away. "I have no interest in marriage," he said, straight to the point. "Not with your sister, not with you, not with anyone at the moment. When your father came here with Felicity, it was an uncomfortable situation. He was literally trying to sell his daughter as if she were a corporate merger." Maggie felt shame burn her face, but Valentine continued. "I received them out of politeness because your father got the meeting through mutual contacts. But as soon as I realized his intentions, I ended the meeting. Your sister is—" He searched for the right words. "Very focused on appearances. There was no connection whatsoever." "Then why did you call me here?" asked Maggie, her voice finally firm. Valentine stood up and walked to the desk, picking up a folder. He returned and handed it to Maggie. When she opened it, her heart stopped. Inside were printouts of all her published articles, every single one, from the first one 3 years ago to the most recent, published just 2 months ago. There were also handwritten notes in the margins, analyses, cross-references. "Mary Sanders," said Valentine, sitting back down. "It's a clever pseudonym, close enough to your real name that you identify with the work, but distant enough to create a separation." Maggie couldn't speak. Her hands shook, holding the folder. "6 months ago," he continued, "one of my directors of social development brought me an article on microfinance in rural communities. The article was brilliant. It completely changed our approach on a project in rural Mississippi. We saved resources and increased impact by 300%. He picked up another document from the table. "I started looking for more work by Mary Sanders. I found an impressive body of work. Articles cited by international universities, economic analyses that challenged established orthodoxies, innovative proposals for sustainable development, and all this without institutional affiliation, without a listed formal degree." Maggie finally found her voice. "How did you discover it was me?" Valentine smiled. "It wasn't easy. It took months of discreet investigation. I hired digital tracking experts. Finally, through metadata from a file sent to a journal, we managed to identify a general location, the region of your estate in Georgia. From there, it was a matter of investigating traditional families in the area, looking for young women with limited but possible access to education. Your name appeared on a short list. And how were you sure?" "Your emails," he said gently. "The way you write, the vocabulary, the style of argumentation. We compared it with your published articles. It's unmistakable. You have a unique voice, Maggie." She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Years of secrecy, years hiding her true identity, and this man had figured it out. When your father scheduled the meeting to present Felicity, I saw an opportunity. I wanted to meet you in person. I wanted to confirm my suspicions, and if I was right, make a proposal. What proposal? Whispered Maggie. Valentine stood up and walked to the window, hands in his pockets. My business group is expanding the social development and sustainability division. We need someone who deeply understands the reality of rural communities, who has innovative ideas, who isn't contaminated by traditional corporate thinking. We need someone like you. He turned to face her. I want to offer you the position of Director of Social Development, competitive salary, housing in New York, your own team, autonomy to implement your ideas. You would be responsible for projects impacting millions of people. Maggie felt like she was in a dream. This can't be real. It is real, said Valentine, sitting back down. Very real. Your articles prove you have the knowledge. Now I need to know if you have the courage to step out of the shadows and assume this role publicly. I don't have a degree, murmured Maggie. I don't have corporate experience. My father would never allow it. As for the degree, we can resolve that. I have contacts at universities that recognize autodidactic learning. Your academic output can be converted into credits. As for experience, your articles demonstrate more practical understanding than many executives with decades of careers. And my father? Asked Maggie, feeling the old fear return. Valentine became serious. That is the most delicate part. I know more about your family than you imagine, Maggie. I know about the control dynamic. I know about your mother's situation. Maggie stared at him, surprised. How? When we investigated you, we investigated everything. Your father uses your mother's health as a manipulation tool. She needs continuous treatment that he controls. It's a way to keep everyone in line. Maggie felt tears threaten to overflow. I can't leave her. You won't have to leave. Her, said Valentine, his voice gentle. Before even calling you here, I already arranged something. My personal foundation has assumed responsibility for your mother's medical treatment. All costs, indefinitely. She will have access to the best doctors in Atlanta or New York whenever she wants. Your father no longer has that power over her, or over you. Maggie couldn't hold back the tears. They flowed freely as she tried to process what she was hearing. Why? Why would you do this for me? For us? Valentine leaned forward, his expression sincere. Because wasting talent is a crime. Because your mother doesn't deserve to be a hostage. Because I believe that if we give you the opportunity, you can change the lives of thousands of people through your work. He extended his hand. So, what do you say? Do you accept my offer? Maggie looked at that outstretched hand. It was more than a job offer. It was a door to a completely different life. It was freedom. It was purpose. It was the chance to be who she really was. But it also meant confronting her father, breaking with everything she knew, risking herself in a new world. She thought of her mother saying, "If there is a chance to be free, grab it." Maggie wiped her tears and took Valentine's hand. "I accept." The smile that lit up his face was genuine and warm. "Welcome to the team, Maggie. Or should I say, welcome back, Mary Sanders. From now on, you don't need to hide anymore." They talked for 2 more hours. Valentine explained the details of the position, the ongoing projects, the company structure, showed her offices, introduced some team members. Maggie absorbed everything like a sponge, her mind already racing with ideas and possibilities. When it was finally time to leave, Valentine accompanied her to the elevator. "You'll need a few days to organize the move. I've arranged an apartment for you in Greenwich Village. And Maggie," he hesitated, "your father is going to react badly to this." "I know," she said, and for the first time in years there was determination in her voice. "But I'm ready." When Maggie got into the car that would take her back to the estate, she was a different person from the one who had arrived. She would still have to face the storm that was coming, but now, for the first time, she wasn't alone. The explosion happened exactly 10 minutes after Maggie walked through the door of the estate. Robert was in the library, waiting. Felicity was on the sofa, arms crossed, eyes still swollen with jealousy and anger. Lucille was absent, likely retreated to her room, but Maggie knew she would hear everything. "So," said Robert without preamble, "did he realize how superior your sister is?" Maggie took a deep breath. She had planned this moment during the entire trip back. She knew it would be difficult, that there would be consequences, but there was no turning back. "That's not what happened, Father." Robert frowned. "What do you mean? Explain yourself." "Valentine Sterling offered me a job, an executive position in his company, and I accepted." The silence that followed was so absolute, Maggie could hear her own heart beating. Then, like a storm finally breaking, Robert started to laugh. It wasn't a laugh of joy. It was a cruel, disbelieving laugh. "A job? For you? He must be using you for some purpose. You're not qualified for anything." "I am," said Maggie, and for the first time in her life, her voice didn't tremble before her. "Father, I have knowledge, I have ability, and I have value. Valentine Sterling recognized that." Felicity stood up, her voice coming out in a hysterical scream. "This is ridiculous. You are nobody. He is obviously wanting to humiliate you, or worse, is using you for some dirty game." Robert took a step toward Maggie, finger pointed. "You are going nowhere. You will stay here where your place is, and you will forget these absurd fantasies." "No," said Maggie, her voice firm. "I'm going, and there is nothing you can do to stop me." The slap Robert tried to deliver didn't connect. Maggie, for the first time, dodged. She caught her father's wrist in the air, her eyes meeting his. "No," she repeated. "Never again." Robert recoiled, shocked. No one had ever challenged him like that inside his own house. "If you leave this house," he growled, "you are dead to this family, dead to me. And your mother? Do you think I'll keep paying for her treatment? With you not here to serve, without any utility, why would I keep your mother alive?" Maggie felt the old pain, the old fear, but then she remembered Valentine's words. Her father didn't have that power anymore. "My mother's treatment has already been assumed by the Sterling Foundation," she said, watching the color drain from Robert's face. "She will have access to top-tier doctors indefinitely. You no longer have control over that. You no longer have control over us." The revelation dropped like a bomb. Robert staggered to his chair, sitting heavily. Felicity looked between her father and Maggie, trying to process what was happening. That is absurd," stammered Robert. "He can't just interfere like that in family matters." "He can, when the family uses health as blackmail," replied Maggie. "Valentine, Sterling knows everything, Father. He knows how you treat Mom, how you treat me, and he decided to intervene." Robert stood up suddenly, grabbing the phone. "I'm going to sue him. I'm going to destroy his reputation in the press. I'm going to tell everyone he is manipulating a vulnerable young woman." Maggie gave a sad smile. "You can try, but I have documentation of everything. Every email, every contract, every conversation. There is nothing illegal or improper. Just a legitimate job offer for someone qualified." "Qualified?" exploded Felicity. "You aren't qualified for anything. You have no education, no experience." Maggie looked at her sister. For years she had endured these criticisms in silence. No more. "I have 3 years of academic publications in international journals. My articles have been cited by universities in 5 different countries. I have deep knowledge in social development and sustainable economics. I am Mary Sanders." "Who?" asked Felicity, confused. "It's my pseudonym," explained Maggie. "During all those years you thought I was sleeping or resting. I was studying, researching, writing, contributing to important academic discussions. Valentine Sterling discovered my work and found me because of it." Robert stared at her with an expression Maggie had never seen before. It was a mixture of shock, anger, and something that might be reluctant respect. "You deceived us all," he said slowly. "I didn't deceive," corrected Maggie. "I just lived my true life away from your eyes. Because if you knew, you would have found a way to use it against me, to take that away from me too." She picked up the suitcase she had secretly packed before the trip to New York. "I'm leaving tomorrow morning. I only came to say goodbye to Mom and get my things." Felicity blocked the door. "You can't do this to this family. Abandon us like this." Maggie looked into her sister's eyes. "You never treated me like family, Felicity. I was the maid, remember? The invisible one. Now I'm finally going to be seen. I'm going to be valued. I'm going to be who I really am." She walked past her sister and went up the stairs. In her mother's room, she found Lucille sitting on the bed, tears in her eyes, but a smile on her face. "You did it," whispered Lucille, pulling Maggie into a hug. "My brave daughter, you did it." They cried together, but they were tears of liberation. Maggie explained everything, and Lucille held her hands tightly. "Don't worry about me. For the first time in years, I'm going to be okay. Go, live your life. Make me proud." "I already do, Mom." A week later, Maggie was in her new apartment in Greenwich Village, New York. It was small but cozy, tastefully furnished. Through the window, she saw the trees of the street and the movement of the city. Her first day of work was overwhelming. The Social Development Division office occupied 2 floors of the building in the financial district. The team had 20 people, all highly qualified, and all, Maggie quickly realized, skeptical about her hiring. During the introduction meeting, she felt the stares. Valentine's personal assistant, a woman named Patricia Trish Miller, was especially cold. Trish was 35, had an MBA from Wharton, and clearly resented the attention Valentine gave Maggie. "It's unusual," commented Trish during coffee break, "to hire someone without direct corporate experience, but I'm sure you'll learn fast. If you need help with basic things, you can come to me." The tone was condescending, but Maggie kept her composure. "Thank you, Trish. I appreciate the support." In the following days, Maggie dove into work. She studied every ongoing project, analyzed reports, proposed adjustments based on her research. Valentine was often traveling, but when present, always stopped by her office to check her progress. "You're doing well," he said one afternoon, reviewing a proposal she had made. "Your ideas are exactly what we needed." But not everyone thought so. Trish began a subtle campaign of sabotage. Important documents didn't arrive on time for Maggie. Meetings were scheduled without notifying her. Malicious comments circulated. She was only hired because the boss was interested in her. She has no real qualifications. Maggie tried to ignore it, but it was hard. She was used to belittlement at home, but hoped that in the professional environment, things would be different. The blow came 2 weeks after her hiring. Trish approached her in the corridor with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Maggie, there is a charity gala dinner this Saturday. It's important for our projects. All the directors will be present. You should go." Maggie hesitated. "I don't have suitable clothes for that kind of event." "Oh," said Trish, feigning surprise. "Well, it's optional, of course, but it would be good for you to start networking." Maggie knew what that was, a trap. Trish expected her to appear out of place, inadequate, and humiliate herself publicly. But Maggie underestimated Valentine. On the day of the event, she received a visit from 3 stylists at her apartment. They brought dresses, shoes, accessories. A message from Valentine said, "I know Trish invited you. She expects you to feel uncomfortable. Let's ensure she is disappointed." Maggie chose an emerald green dress, elegant but not flashy. When she entered the hotel ballroom where the event was taking place, heads turned. Trish was near, the entrance, chatting with colleagues. Her face went pale upon seeing Maggie. The event was a succession of presentations and speeches. Maggie circulated discreetly, chatting when approached, but mainly observing and learning. Then Trish went up on stage to make announcements. Her gaze found Maggie in the crowd. "I would like to welcome our newest director," she said into the microphone. "Maggie Abbott, who joins us as a special project of Mr. Sterling. She comes from a non-traditional background, and we are all eager to help her adapt to the corporate world." It was subtle, but the message was clear. She was charity, not competence. Maggie felt anger boil, but kept her calm. She walked to the stage, climbing the steps with dignity. Trish, surprised, had to hand over the microphone. "Thank you, Trish," said Maggie, her voice firm. It is true that I come from a non-traditional background. I didn't have the privilege of expensive universities or established networks. She paused, observing everyone's attention focused on her. Then she projected onto the screen behind her, using her phone connected to the system, the covers of her academic articles. But I had the privilege of autodidactic education. These are some of my works published in international journals, cited by universities like MIT, Oxford, and Yale. My research on sustainable social development has impacted projects in 4 countries. The audience murmured, impressed. Trish was pale in the corner of the stage. So yes, I am a project, but not of charity. I am a project of valuing talent wherever it is found, and I am proud of that. The applause was thunderous. Maggie stepped down from the stage and was immediately surrounded by people wanting to know her better. Trish disappeared quickly from the event. The battle was just beginning. 3 weeks passed since the gala dinner. Maggie was completely immersed in her first big project, a rural development initiative that would connect small family farmers to sustainable technologies and urban markets. It was ambitious, complex, and would directly impact the lives of thousands of families. The presentation for investors was scheduled for a Friday. It would be in the company's main auditorium, with the presence of Valentine, the board, external investors, and representatives of partner NGOs. It was Maggie's chance to definitively prove her worth. She spent days preparing every detail. The slides were perfect, the data triple-checked, the arguments solidly built. She talked to rural communities via video conference, visited pilot projects, refined every aspect of the proposal. Trish had been strangely quiet since the gala dinner, even cordial at times. Maggie should have been suspicious. On Thursday night, the eve of the presentation, Maggie did one last review. Everything was perfect. She saved the presentation to the cloud and the flash drive she would use the next day, checked her notes, and went home, nervous but confident. What she didn't know was that at that exact moment, Trish was in her own office, executing a meticulously elaborated plan. Weeks before, moved by resentment, Trish had done something unthinkable. She had contacted Felicity Abbott via social media. Maggie's sister was more than willing to cooperate. Together, they hatched a plan to destroy Maggie publicly. Trish had managed access to the presentation systems. She replaced Maggie's professional slides with something completely different. Old photos that Felicity had provided. Maggie in simple clothes, working as a maid on the estate, serving the family. And fake messages created to look like conversations between Maggie and Valentine, suggesting an inappropriate relationship. The final blow would be Robert and Felicity invading the presentation with news, crews pretending to rescue Maggie from a situation of exploitation. On the morning of the presentation, Maggie woke up with a strange feeling. It wasn't exactly a premonition, but a restlessness she couldn't explain. She dressed with care, choosing a navy blue suit that conveyed professionalism and confidence. At the office, everyone greeted her. Even Trish passed her in the hallway and wished her good luck with a smile that Maggie found slightly odd. The auditorium was full. Maggie recognized important faces from the social development sector, investors she only knew by name, specialized journalists. And there, in the front row, was Valentine, next to an elegant older lady Maggie didn't recognize. "Mrs. Helen Sterling, Valentine's mother," whispered someone beside Maggie. "She rarely appears at corporate events." Maggie felt the nervousness increase but took a deep breath. Her time had come. She went up on stage, connected her flash drive, waited for the slides to appear. The room darkened, the screen lit up. And then, the horror. Instead of her professional title and project data, the first image was a photo of her in the estate kitchen, wearing an apron, washing dishes. The caption read, "The real Maggie Abbott." There was a confused murmur in the audience. Maggie felt her blood run cold. She tried to advance to the next slide, hoping it was a mistake, but it wasn't. Slide after slide showed photos of her in domestic situations, some clearly taken without her knowledge, and between the photos, screenshots of fabricated messages, suggesting that she and Valentine had a secret relationship, that the job was a facade. The audience began to react, some shocked, others confused, others clearly believing what they saw. Maggie was paralyzed on stage, feeling the humiliation wash over her like a wave. It was her worst nightmare coming true. Everything she had fought for, all the credibility she had built, crumbling in seconds. And then, as if the situation couldn't get worse, the auditorium doors opened violently. Robert Abbott entered, followed by Felicity and two news crews with cameras rolling. His hair was perfectly combed, his suit impeccable. He was playing the role of the concerned father. "Stop this farce!" he shouted, his voice echoing through the auditorium. "I came to rescue my daughter from this degrading situation." Felicity ran to the stage, trying to grab Maggie's arm. "Maggie, come with me. You don't need to be manipulated by this man anymore." The cameras recorded everything. The journalists present at the event pulled out their phones. It was about to become a national scandal. Maggie was in a state of shock. She couldn't process what was happening. She felt her legs weaken. And then a firm voice cut through the chaos. "Sit down, now." Mrs. Helen Sterling was standing, small in stature, but immense in presence. Her voice had an authority that made everyone stop. Robert glared at her. "Who are you to give me orders? I came to get my daughter." "I am Helen Sterling," she replied, "and this is my building, my family company, and you," she pointed to Robert and Felicity, "are going to sit down and watch what I have to show." Security guards appeared at the doors, blocking any exit. Robert, realizing he had no choice, sat in a nearby chair, Felicity beside him. The cameras kept rolling. Mrs. Sterling went up on stage with the help of Maggie, who was still trembling. The older lady connected her own device to the projection system. "You want the truth? I will show you the truth." The screen changed. Now it showed security footage. The date in the corner indicated 3 weeks ago. It was Valentine's office. The recording showed Robert and Felicity arriving for the initial meeting. The audio was crystal clear. The audience watched, fascinated, as Robert literally offered Felicity as if he were selling a product. "How much is an alliance with the Abbotts worth? My daughter is educated in the best schools, is beautiful, would be a perfect wife for a man of your status." Felicity, in the recording, smiled and agreed, posing, showing herself off like merchandise. And then came the most devastating part. Valentine, in the recording, politely but firmly refusing. "Your daughter is certainly charming, Mr. Abbott, but I must be honest. I see no depth in her character. She seems to me void of purpose beyond appearances." Robert, in the recording, turned red. "And what about my other daughter, the useless one?" Valentine leaned forward. "Your other daughter is brilliant. She is Mary Sanders, the author of academic articles that completely changed some of our corporate approaches. If you want any alliance with me, it will be through her, not through marriage, but through her talent." The recording ended. The silence in the auditorium was absolute. Robert was pale. Felicity was crying, hands covering her face, but Mrs. Sterling hadn't finished. "And now," she said, "let's hear another witness." The auditorium doors opened again. Maggie turned, and her heart stopped. Her mother, Lucille Abbott, entered the auditorium. She was different, no longer pale and fragile. Her eyes had a shine Maggie hadn't seen in years. She walked slowly but with dignity, supported by a nurse. "Mom," whispered Maggie. Lucille went up on stage and hugged her daughter. Then she turned to the audience, to the cameras, to Robert, who stared at her with a mixture of anger and fear. "My name is Lucille Abbott," she began, her voice weak but firm, "and I came here to tell the truth about my family." Robert stood up. "Lucille, you aren't well. You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I am saying," she replied. "For the first time in years, I am healthy enough to speak. Thanks to the Sterling Foundation, which assumed my medical treatment, I finally received the care you denied me." She took a deep breath. "For years, my husband used my illness as a tool of control. He rationed my medications, denied consultations, all to keep us all submissive. My daughter Maggie was treated like a maid in our own home, humiliated daily, prevented from having a life of her own." Tears streamed down Lucille's face, but she continued. And when I discovered that she, in secret, was educating herself, writing brilliant articles, being recognized internationally, I felt proud and sad at the same time. Proud of her courage, sad because she had to hide her brilliance from us. Robert tried to get up again, but the security guard stopped him. Lucille looked directly at the cameras. My daughter, Maggie, wasn't manipulated by anyone. She was rescued from a family that didn't value her, and I, for the first time, am free too. Mrs. Sterling hugged Lucille, and the two turned to Maggie, who was crying openly. The audience remained silent for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Another joined, and another. In seconds, the entire auditorium was standing, applauding. Robert and Felicity were escorted out of the building. The news crews, realizing they had been duped, now had a much better story. That of a talented young woman who overcame family abuse and found her place. Trish was called to the stage by security guards. She tried to deny involvement, but Mrs. Sterling had evidence. Unauthorized access to systems, communications with Felicity, all documented. "You are fired," said Valentine, who finally went up on stage, "and you will face legal consequences for your actions." Trish left escorted, destroyed. Maggie, still trembling, looked at Valentine. "How did you know? How did you prepare for this?" Valentine smiled gently. "My mother has an infallible instinct for people. She noticed Trish's behavior and investigated. We discovered the plan 3 days ago. We decided to let it play out, but prepared to reveal the truth." Mrs. Sterling held Maggie's hands. "My dear, you deserved for the truth to be told. Now how about giving your presentation for real?" Maggie wiped her tears. The correct slides were loaded, and with her mother and Mrs. Sterling in the front row with Valentine beside them, Maggie gave the presentation of her life. She spoke about rural development, about sustainability, about dignity and opportunity. She spoke with passion, with knowledge, with the voice of someone who could finally be herself. When she finished, the approval was unanimous. The investors signed on the spot. The project that would change thousands of lives was approved. But Maggie's true victory wasn't in the numbers or the contracts. It was in looking at her mother and seeing pride. It was in knowing she had found people who valued her. It was in finally being free. A year had passed since that dramatic day in the auditorium. Maggie was on the balcony of her apartment, now larger and better located near Central Park, drinking coffee as the morning sun painted New York in golden tones. Her laptop was open on the table, showing an invitation she had just received. "Dear Doctor." "Maggie Abbott," the email read, "it is with great pleasure that we invite you to be a keynote speaker at the International Conference on Social Development in Geneva." She smiled. "Doctor." The title still sounded strange, but it was official. Columbia University had recognized her academic work and practical experience, granting her an honorary doctorate in social economics. At 25, she was one of the youngest internationally recognized experts in her field. The phone rang. It was Lucille. "Good morning, my daughter. Don't forget our lunch today." "I would never forget, Mom. How are you feeling?" "Wonderfully well. The doctor said my tests have never been better. Did you know I spent yesterday morning at the painting studio?" Maggie felt her heart warm. Her mother hadn't just recovered her physical health. She had resurfaced as a person, free from Robert's yoke, with access to proper treatment and emotional support. Lucille flourished. Now she lived in a small apartment in Atlanta, close to new friends, painted, went to therapy, and rediscovered the joy of living. The divorce had been quick and definitive. With the recordings of Robert's threats and Lucille's public testimony, there was no contest. She asked for nothing but her freedom. As for Robert and Felicity, Maggie barely thought about them anymore, but she knew enough. The scandal had completely destroyed their social reputation. Robert had lost the few businesses he still maintained. Friends had abandoned them. The estate had been sold to pay debts. Felicity had tried to rebuild a life in another city, but the recordings of that day had gone viral. She was recognized as the cruel sister who had tried to sabotage her own family. According to Lucille, She was working in a clothing store in Macon, far from the spotlight she had so desired. Maggie felt no pleasure in their ruin, but she felt no pity either. They made their choices. Now they lived with the consequences. She finished her coffee and prepared to go to the office. Today was a special day. Her rural development project, approved on that dramatic day, was completing 1 year of implementation. And the results exceeded all expectations. 3,000 farming families in 6 states now had access to sustainable technology, urban markets, and fair financing. The average income of these families had increased by 200%. Children who previously dropped out of school to work were now studying. Entrepreneurial women were creating cooperatives. At the office, Maggie was welcomed with hugs and congratulations. Her team, now 30 people strong, had prepared a surprise. The auditorium where the confrontation happened was decorated with photos of the benefited communities. Smiling farmers, children in school, products being sold. Valentine arrived shortly after, accompanied by Mrs. Sterling. The Sterling matriarch had become a mentor to Maggie, teaching her not just about business, but about how to navigate the corporate world while maintaining integrity. "Congratulations, Maggie," said Valentine, shaking her hand. "A year ago, you presented a dream. Today, it is a transforming reality." "I wouldn't have managed without your support," replied Maggie. Mrs. Sterling hugged her. "My dear, the talent was all yours. We just removed the obstacles." During the celebration, Maggie looked around. Her team was diverse, passionate, committed. Many came from non-traditional backgrounds, just like her. Maggie had made a point of creating opportunities for people who, like her, had talent but lacked access to conventional paths. The party was interrupted by an unexpected arrival. Lucille entered the office radiant, accompanied by a gentle-looking gentleman Maggie recognized from video calls. It was her mother's painting teacher. "Surprise," said Lucille, hugging Maggie. "I wasn't going to miss this celebration for anything." Maggie introduced her mother to everyone. Seeing Lucille interacting socially, smiling, being herself, was still surprising and wonderful. The transformation was complete. Later, when the celebration wound down, Valentine called Maggie for a private conversation in his office. "I have a proposal," he said, sitting casually on the edge of the desk. "We are expanding to Latin America. We want to create social development divisions in 5 countries, and I would like you to lead the entire operation." Maggie sat down, processing. It would be a huge promotion, an even greater challenge. "It would mean traveling a lot," continued Valentine. "It would mean building teams, establishing partnerships, replicating what you did here on a continental scale. It is a huge responsibility." He paused, watching her. "But if anyone can do it, it's you. Not because I believe in you, although I do, but because you have already proven it. Repeatedly." Maggie thought of everything that had happened in the last year. The nights of intense work, the challenges overcome, the small daily victories. She thought of the invisible girl washing dishes on the estate, hiding her dreams, in lonely early mornings. "I accept," she said, and her smile was genuine. "Great," replied Valentine. "And Maggie," he hesitated, "there is something else I need to say." She looked at him, curious. "When I started investigating you, it was just professional interest, but getting to know you, seeing you grow this year, witnessing your strength and resilience," he searched for the right words. "You have become very important to me, as a colleague, as a friend, as a person I admire deeply." Maggie felt her heart race but kept her voice calm. "You are also important to me, Valentine. You gave me a chance when no one else would, defended me when I needed it, believed in me when I barely believed in myself." He smiled, a gentle and slightly vulnerable smile. "Well then, I think we will have a lot of time working together on this new endeavor." Maggie nodded, and she couldn't be happier about it. In the following months, Maggie traveled through Latin America. She met communities, established partnerships, trained teams. Her story of overcoming and recognized talent inspired others. Young people from rural communities saw an example in her. Women in difficult situations found hope. She never forgot where she came from. Every project she approved took into consideration not just economic efficiency, but human dignity. She understood viscerally what it meant to be invisible, to be belittled, and she used that understanding to create genuine opportunities. One night in Quito, after a long meeting, Maggie received an unexpected message. It was from Felicity. The message was short. "Maggie, I know I don't deserve your attention, but I need you to know. I was blind. I mistreated you because Daddy taught me to belittle you, but that is no excuse. You were always better than me. Stronger, smarter, kinder. I ask for forgiveness even knowing I can't expect to be forgiven. You don't need to reply. I just wanted you to know that, for the first time, I see who you really are. And I'm trying to see who I can be too." Maggie read the message several times. She didn't reply immediately. Some wounds take time to heal. But she felt something inside her soften. It wasn't reconciliation, not yet, but it was a beginning of healing. 2 years after leaving the estate, Maggie was in Switzerland, speaking to hundreds of experts in social development. Her mother was in the audience, proud, Valentine too, beside Mrs. Sterling. "When we start working for social change," said Maggie into the microphone, "we cannot forget that we are talking about people who, like me, might be hiding incredible talents because their circumstances don't allow them to shine. Our work isn't just implementing programs, it is creating opportunities so that each person can become who they really are." The applause was thunderous, but the moment that mattered most to Maggie was afterwards, when a shy young woman approached her. "I come from a family that doesn't believe in me," said the girl, tears in her eyes. "But your story gave me hope. If you made it, maybe I can too." Maggie hugged the young woman. "You will make it. Believe in yourself, study, prepare, and when the opportunity comes, grab it." That night, in her hotel room, Maggie reflected on everything. She hadn't become who she was despite her history. She had become who she was because of it. Every difficulty had strengthened her. Every humiliation had taught her empathy. Every night, studying in secret, had built her foundation. She no longer needed her father or sister's approval. She no longer defined her value through their eyes. She knew her own value, and she used it to create value in the lives of others. Maggie Abbott, the invisible girl from Oak Creek Estate, was now Dr. Maggie Abbott, a recognized international expert, leader of projects transforming lives on 3 continents. But more important than any title or recognition, she was finally, completely herself. And that, she had discovered, was the greatest victory of all. End of story. If Maggie's journey touched your heart, know that we have many other moving stories waiting for you. Stories of overcoming, of courage, of people who found their light even in the darkness. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any chapter of the next narratives that will warm your soul and inspire your days. Leave a like if Maggie's story resonated with you, and in the comments tell us, have you ever had to hide your true potential from someone? Your story matters, just as Maggie's mattered. And who knows, your triumph might inspire someone who needs to hear that it is possible to start over. See you in the next story. See you soon. See.